So we have relationism and positional play, both at opposite ends of the spectrum. And when you merge them together and you can find the sweet spot between being disciplined positionally and giving your players the full freedom and full creativity responsibility, Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen is what you get. I mean, this will be a long video because I know how much there is to talk about the intricate details, about the general details, just everything about the way this team has been shaped by Xabi Alonso. Let's get into it now. So Bayer Leverkusen are very, very flexible in possession. They go from a 3-2 build-up shape to a 4-2 build-up shape. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, on paper, this is how they set up in that title-winning game against Werder Bremen, with a back three of Tapsoba, Tar, Kusunu, Xhaka, Andrić as the double pivot, Hincapie as the left wing-back, Teller as the right wing-back, Hoffman and Adli as the two number 10s in behind Boniface. But as you can see, in that phase of play, they became a back four, with Kusunu coming right back, Tar coming centre back with Tapsoba, and obviously filling up this spot is the left wing back, which is Hincapie. Xhaka, Andrić formed the double pivot, and then Teller went very high and wide along with Boniface, and they essentially created a staggered 4-2-2-2. And by the way, what shape does this resemble? Which manager? Which team? Brighton. The 4-2-2-2 system. Very simple, very similar to Brighton with the double pivots and the two number 10s operating in the pockets. And what you'll see as you watch this video is that Bayer Leverkusen's double pivots never work on flat lines. If they do, it's for a split second before they're alternating onto different lines, because by operating on different lines, you can create angles to go from here to there through a little bounce pass, a little third man combination. So if there's someone marking the space between Tapsoba and Xhaka, by operating on different lines, the ball can end up with Xhaka through Andrić, the other player in that double pivot, through a little pass here, then there, and then Xhaka can play forward. And you'll see this be a very, very common theme with Bayer Leverkusen's build-up pattern. Now, in this phase of play, Kusunu had the ball out here, and once again, the double pivots of Bayer Leverkusen are very flexible, they're very mobile, they have a lot of free reign just to get into spaces to get the ball and dictate the game. So when Kusunu had the ball, the right centre-back, Tar shifted across, Tapsoba slightly went wider, which allowed Andrić to drop into that space. You still have a sort of back four system, but now Hincapie's gone further up the pitch. So yes, it's like a back three, but Andrić has dropped into that space to get the ball like that. And if you notice, Xhaka is on a different line to Andrić, and then they've done a rotation further up the pitch in the duration of that pass. So what you'll notice with Bayer Leverkusen is if they're passing the ball round the back, further up the pitch, there is a rotation. There is a swapping of positions just to disorientate the opposition, just to always keep them thinking. So as the ball is played across, as you can see, Hoffman has spun out and Boniface has dropped into that number 10 pocket of space right there. So now you have your back three of Tapsoba, Tar and Kusunu with your double pivots on different lines, Andrić and Xhaka, and then your two number 10s are now Adli, who was the starting number 10, and then Boniface, who's dropped in from the striker position. And the opposition centre-back in this scenario would be a bit confused because now suddenly Hoffman has spun out, but because they know that Hoffman's a number 10, they're thinking, what if he drops in, gets the ball like this, turns and just runs at us? So by giving the striker the freedom to drop in and out, it just creates problems for the opposition. What Bayer Leverkusen really like to do is continuously be unpredictable and force the opposition into difficult situations where they're constantly asking themselves, where they're constantly thinking, okay, why is Boniface dropping in? Why is Wirtz peeling out? Why is Hincapie dropped into left back and then he's gone higher? What do I do? So that constant movement, that constant mobility that every single player has creates the fluid structure that we've seen at Bayer Leverkusen. And do you remember when I said that the double pivots are rarely in a straight line? So in this clip now, you'll see that they are in a straight line. And then as the ball is played, suddenly they move, and now once again you have Xhaka and Andrić on a different line. And just through doing that, you always have the opportunity to play in that triangle, to play a third man combination, which is very effective when you want to keep the ball. And this constant operation of different lines just creates so many problems for whoever's marking the double pivot, because as the ball is played like this player is okay, and then suddenly when Andrić goes here and Xhaka drops off, what does he do? Who does he mark? If he marks Andrić, Xhaka gets the ball, as he did. If he goes to Xhaka, Andrić gets the ball. So always operating on different lines across the pitch creates problems for the opposition. They do not want a situation where they're having to focus on one player and then focus on the other player who's operating on a different line. They just want the whole play in front of them, and that's it. The moment, as we've said, Xhaka and Andrić are just moving, interchanging in opposite directions, it just creates so many problems for whoever's marking them and for the back line. And with the link to the positional play, as we can see here, you have your back three, you have your wing backs, then you have your two number 10s and your double pivot. So that's the positional play aspect of Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen. But as we know, whereby Andrić in the first clip dropped very deep to get the ball, you'll see in the later clips Grimaldo inverting, Stanisic inverting, Wirtz dropping in and out. That's the freedom aspect, which is linked to the relationism. And the balance that Xabi Alonso has found between the positional play and relationism is absolutely incredible. And once again, you can see Xhaka and Andrić operating on different lines. And I would actually argue very, very strongly that that double pivot is the reason why Bayer Leverkusen have had so much success this season. Because when they're operating on different lines, when you sometimes have a diamond build-up shape with the back three and one centre defensive midfielder with the other one slightly higher, the opposition structure is not balanced because they're operating on different lines. So the opposition have to adapt because ultimately whoever has the ball is in control. Therefore, if the opposition are marking Xhaka and Andrić in a flat system like this, whereby they have two strikers marking the two double pivots, you could mark them out of the game, just like Carlo Ancelotti did versus Man City by putting Bellingham and Vinicius on Rodri and Akanji. The moment Andrić goes slightly higher, drops in, and then this striker wants to follow Xhaka, this striker wants to follow Andrić, look at this space for an attacking midfielder to drop into a pocket, get the ball, and then Xhaka spins off, and then it's a combination like that, and then Kasunu's wider. And that in itself, I've just shown you a pattern of play that Bayer Leverkusen do every single game. If the double pivots are on a flat line, then the two strikers can mark them out of the game. The opposition can force the play out wide, just like a horseshoe shape. So it will just keep coming around like a horseshoe. And then if the opposition's press is very good and very structured, they'll be able to force turnovers and long balls from the opposition. The moment you go like this and you go like that, so the opposition might be in a predicament and say, you know what, let's mark the furthest centre midfielder, which is this one. Okay, Xhaka just gets the ball and turns. Then he can play combinations. If the opposition decide to go man for man, well, as I've said, those passing lanes right through for a little third man combination will always be on. And when I spoke about the double pivot's freedom and free reign just to get on the ball, that is the relationism aspect. That is not positional play. Because in a strict positional play team, like Pep Guardiola's, you'll never see Sergio Busquets coming all the way to the left touchline just to get the ball, and then Akanji or Stones dropping very deep like that, and then De Bruyne on the far side drifting across to the ball. You'll never see that. You'll see De Bruyne staying in that right half space. You'll see Foden or Bernardo Silva, whoever it is, staying in the left half space. But that's when Xabi Alonso says, forget all of that. We'll keep our back three as the positional players and get our double pivots, get our two attacking mids just to make unorthodox movements. And what does that mean? That means when the ball is all the way on the far side, it's very strange that you'll see the far side attacking midfielder run to the ball, the near side attacking midfielder run to the ball. And the reason why they do that, I hope it's very obvious, is because of that amount of space that's been opened up for a third man combination or even a fourth man combination. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Hoffman will turn, and that's the space that they exploit, either with Teller, with Frimpong, and that's how Bayer Leverkusen have been so dangerous this season. So they'll purposefully push one of the double pivots very wide, bring the other midfielder in that double pivot closer. The near side attacking midfielder, which might be Wirtz, Adli, Hoffman, comes to the ball. The far side attacking midfielder also comes to the ball. So you've created a massive overload. Bearing in mind, you also have your left wing back here. Then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know how many passes they'll do. And then either the outside centre-back, whether that's the left centre-back or the right centre-back, and the right wing-back will be the players to exploit the space. And in a back three system, it's very unorthodox to see an outside centre-back exploit the half space and receive the ball and drive forward, which you'll see Hincapi do. And the only other team I've seen do this exact movement with the outside centre-backs is Inter Milan with Bastoni and Pavard, making those inside runs in that half space, which is very difficult for the opposition to anticipate and mark, and that will create 2v1 problems on this side of the pitch here. And for Bayer Leverkusen, it's more so Hincapi when he plays left centre-back than Kasunu. But the overall idea for Bayer Leverkusen is if you see the space, exploit the space. irrespective of what position you are. And that is totally a relationist approach to football. Positional play will never advocate an outside centre-back making an inside run and potentially being able to score or make underlaps or overlap around the right wing-back. But with relationism, it's all about exploiting the space. You'll see Thiago Motta, he has this principle of collective trust, trusting every single player to make the best decision possible within that given situation. So when you blend in the overload to isolate principle, bringing all the players to one side to switch, not really caring as a manager who receives the ball in the acres of space, is so dangerous. Because with Pep Guardiola, he would want De Bruyne to receive the ball here and then make things happen. But with Xabi Alonso, it's like, let's just overload one side of the pitch and I don't really care who receives the ball here. Because against West Ham, you'll see Stanisic, who was the right wing back, also drifting inside. So it's just all about, if you see the space and you think it'll benefit your team, go into that space, exploit the space. And through this overload to isolate principle, you create situations where you can get your best players, the dictators of the game, operating in the squares of the pitch. So for example, you'll have situations where Andrić has dropped in, the near side attacking midfield has dropped in, Wirtz has dropped in, and then Xhaka, who's the spare player in that 4v3 overload, can receive the ball in a square. And that's when you're operating in no man's land from the opposition's perspective. And then, if their press is very good, this is what will happen. All of this space here, as we've discussed, Hincapi will exploit that space. Then it's a third man combination out to Hincapi. Then Hincapi aggressively drives with the ball with forward runners. And when they've pushed the opposition further back and they're dominating the final third where they're really aggressively trying to score goals, Tar, who's the central centre-back, will push up as well on the edge of the opposite side centre circle. He'll operate around here, which means that the opposition also have to retreat. And now, even if Leverkusen lose the ball, they can win it back because there is no outlet for the opposition. So even if the opposition win the ball here, for example, where's their outlet? If it's there, you have Hincapi, Tar, Kasunu, very athletic runners winning the ball back. And if they try to play from there, because Leverkusen have so many players in close proximity, they'll just win the ball back. So this style of play, it's almost a win-win situation for Bayer Leverkusen. Really pushing the opposition back. And then once you push them back, the furthest player, which is the central centre-back, also pushes up. We've seen Man City do this. We've seen Arsenal do this as well. So they're almost funneling the opposition. If you look at the Blues right now, it's almost like a funnel. Really pushing them back, pegging them back. And then even if the opposition clear it, the central centre-back gets the ball and then restarts the attack. And that's literally a wave attack. Wave after wave after wave. And another pattern of play that Bayer Leverkusen really like to do in settled moments of the game. That's very important. So you have different phases of the game. One from the goalkeeper. Bayer Leverkusen, as we've seen, adopt the 3-2 build-up shape and the 4-2 build-up shape. And that's when Bayer Leverkusen's last defender, which is Tar, is camping around here with the outside centre-backs ready to overlap and underlap where necessary. And in this situation, sometimes the outside centre-back, which could be Hincapi in this instance, gets the ball and then they'll do that up, back and through pattern of play. So it will go straight into Wirtz and then Wirtz will just give it into the number 6, which would be Xhaka, Palacios, Andrić, and then a ball over the top into Grimaldo to exploit the space in behind. So that's something they like to do as well, and that just reinforces their vertical style of play. Not side to side in a horseshoe as other teams do. It's vertical, it's operating in the pockets. And that overload to isolate principle really allows them to play that vertical style of football. Because as we've seen before, when one of the number 6s drop very wide to get the ball here, and then Andrić shuffles across, Wirtz shuffles across, Hoffman shuffles across. This space is exploited by Stanisic, for example. And those options in the middle just allow them to play that vertical style of football. If the ball's on the far side, for example, on this side, for example, if Kasunu has the ball here, you have Andrić showing for the ball, Xhaka showing for the ball, Hoffman showing for the ball, Wirtz even dropping in. And then what they like to do as well is bring creative Grimaldo into the game as well. And now they have 1, 2, 3. They have 5 options here, right in the middle. And as we've discussed before, all of this space would be exploited by Hincapi. So it could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hincapi exploits the space. And then Grimaldo's making an underlap here. Hincapi could cross the ball into the box to Boniface. And that's how they're so dynamic. And even if there's no option, Hincapi will just turn back. Now the opposition have really retreated into their own half. And now Bayer Leverkusen can exert their dominance. So from here, Hincapi will just play it back to Xhaka. And Hincapi would come back into position if the ball gets transferred to the far side. So if the ball is being played on this side, Hincapi would provide the width with Grimaldo inside, with Wirtz, with Hoffman, with Andrić. If the ball slowly gets transferred to this side, Hincapi would say, you know what, I'm a left centre-back now I need to come back into position. That's the positional play aspect. So now they still have their back three shape, but if they have the ball on the far side, if they feel like they can create a chance, that's when they exploit the space. But when they feel like they're insignificant, which is in this case, because the ball's here and they're likely to go to this side, Hincapie says, okay, I'm just going to come back to my position. So Xabi Alonso has found the perfect balance. That's the sweet spot between the positional play and the relationism.